There's a lot of bad news financially for Ubisoft right now because some investors are saying the company needs to take itself private in order to avoid financial ruin. And this is unusual for a major AAA game developing studio like this after they just released one of their major titles like Star Wars Outlaws, because you would think that financially they'd be doing pretty well right now, but that's just not the case because Star Wars Outlaws cost a lot of money for them to make and promote. And it just didn't perform. And then their next big release, Assassin's Creed Shadows, just doesn't look like it's going to do that well either. That's why they're saying they need to take the company private. And just for a point of reference, here's the stock value for Ubisoft right now. It's currently sitting at $261 a share. And you have to go all the way back to around the springtime of 2013 in order to find stock value nearly that low. So that means this company is sitting at an 11-year low for their stock value for this. And a lot of people were pointing to their DEI practices, whether it's just the push of it in games or their hiring practices at the studio as the reason why the company is not doing too well. Because, well, frankly, if you're hiring people because they check the right boxes and not because they're the most qualified, then you're not going to be producing the most quality stuff. And gamers are starting to pick up on this sort of thing right now. And that's why a lot of studios are trying to do away with it, at least overtly do away with it. They're still going to maintain their DEI departments, but they're just going to try to rebrand them in order to make gamers think that they're kind of going back to just hiring the best people like that. So we see this article from that Park Place from a couple of weeks ago where Activision and Blizzard announced that they're going to be doing away with DEI stuff, but it's actually just kind of a rebrand. But Ubisoft, on the other hand, is taking the direct opposite approach because instead it seems like they're just doubling down on this, and it's really to their own detriment. But let's look at this article from Bounding Into Comics. It's talking about it. The headline: applications opening soon for Develop at Ubisoft Women and Non-Binary Mentorship Program. We have an exciting opportunity to create inclusion entertainment that is truly reflective of our diverse world. This implies that games have never been diverse and inclusive in the past, but that's what they're saying right now. Let's look into this, though, a little bit further. In service of their self-declared goal of empowering and supporting underrepresented genders, Ubisoft will soon begin accepting applications for the 2024 edition of their Develop at Ubisoft Mentorship Program. Launched in 2020 and originally titled the WIMIX. I'm just going to give them credit and assume they misspelt woman because WIMIX is just ridiculous. Who would do such a thing after all? Develop at Ubisoft before eventually having its name shortened to its current form. The program aims to provide mentorship opportunities for women and non-binary individuals, students, or fresh graduates with less than 2 years of experience interested in video games to develop their skill set in game design and programming. White men need not apply because nothing says inclusivity like excluding someone because of their race and gender. Further elaborating on the program's purpose in its programming brief, Ubisoft adds, with more people playing games than ever before, we have an exciting opportunity to create inclusive entertainment that is truly reflective of our diverse world. Games have always been diverse and reflected the world. The only difference is if you had a non-white character in a video game in the past, the game developers weren't pointing that out to everyone and saying, see, we put non-white people in the game. Aren't we special about that? I liked it better when that was just included because they were just trying to make the world seem more fleshed out as opposed to knowing it was the deliberate choice for political reasons. And also this idea that you have to be inclusive in the games in order to get people to play them, because when I was a kid, it wasn't just straight white males playing video games. Literally everyone was playing video games and no one cared about all that other stuff. But a lot of these game developers nowadays think that you have to deliberately pander to different groups in order to get them playing, which we know from history is just not the case. The industry continues to benefit from different backgrounds, fresh perspectives, and new ideas. Develop at Ubisoft supports this evolution by highlighting emerging talent. When they thrive, so does the industry. Sure, they love new ideas and fresh perspectives unless it's from the other side of the political aisle. Then those people can just kick rocks because they're not interested in the perspective of a bunch of ists and phobes. They only want new ideas and fresh perspectives from people who agree with them on every other issue. So it says right here some of the requirements for the program and what it'll actually entail for them. Scrolling further down into the article, the Develop at Ubisoft program appears to be the product of the studio's previously revealed Project Rise, described by their VP of Global Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility, Rashi Sika as a multi-year strategy to ensure that Ubisoft better reflects the diversity of our players with a focus on racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity. So in a time when a lot of other major game studios are trying to get rid of this label, they're just jumping headfirst into it, and there's a wonder why their stock value is tanking right now. This strategy will focus on 3 key areas: talent acquisition, internal talent development, and external talent pipeline development. We know that different people experience life in the workplace differently. There are different opportunities and barriers that we all face. In the workplace, addressing barriers requires us to be specific, targeted, and focused in our actions. At Ubisoft, we will be focusing on 4 key dimensions: gender equality, race and ethnicity, LGBTQIA+ inclusion, and disability inclusion. You can call me crazy, old-fashioned, but if you disagree with me, you're probably just going to call me an istophobe, whatever. I don't really care about that, but I think the goal of a game studio should be trying to cultivate the most talented people as opposed to trying to collect the most checkboxes like their Pokemon or something like that, because I understand the idea that you want to have different perspectives and fresh ideas, but that's not tied to race. That's just tied to the individual upbringing, because a white person growing up in the inner city is going to have a different perspective than a white person growing up in the suburbs or growing up in a rural area. And it's the same with the black person growing up in each of those different environments too. And that's why I think game studios, if they're trying to look for different ideas, to focus on those sort of things as opposed to just the superficial skin color and other stuff like that, because, well, not only is that extremely racist to do that, but you're not necessarily going to be getting the best people. And I think a lot of gamers have started to pick up on this, even if they're not necessarily consciously aware of it. I said this in my video when I was talking about this previous article from that Park Place, when it was talking about how game studios are trying to rebrand it in order to avoid the DEI label, because that's ultimately not going to fix the problem. The problem with having these departments isn't that people pick up on those departments and then they boycott the game. The problem is gamers play these games and they just feel that these games aren't as good as previous games where they didn't focus on DEI. And that's what Ubisoft should be doing, is focusing on just improving the quality as opposed to thinking that you need to have more inclusivity in order to try to attract more demographics, because that really hasn't been working out for them and it hasn't been working out for other companies. You're seeing this, how Activision Blizzard is going to try to rebrand it and hope that that can actually help stem some of the problems that they've been facing in recent years. But I really don't think that's going to be the case. I think gamers are still going to pick up those games and just feel like these games just aren't as good. And eventually these studios are either going to go under or they're going to come around to the idea. It's like, let's focus on getting more talented people working for us as opposed to just hiring people based off of the skin color. But that's just my crazy idea. And apparently it's a racist idea to focus on a person, individual character, as opposed to the color of their skin. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you think there should be more inclusivity in games, or are you just kind of laughing about the downfall right now? Comment below, and if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And if you can, click that like button and share this video out there because it helps out with the channel. Thank you.